For decades, one unbelievable lie has echoed through the halls of propaganda and miseducation. That Joseph Stalin, born Joseph Jurashvili in the Georgian town of Gori, was a great Georgian patriot. That he protected his homeland by suppressing its minorities, ensuring unity and order. But what if we told you that was a carefully crafted myth? A story weaponized by Russian intelligence and Soviet-era historians to mask one of the cruelest betrayals in Georgian history. A myth that today lives on especially among Ossetian and Abkhaz separatists who cynically praised Stalin as a unifier of Georgia and suppressor of Abkhazians and Ossetians while ignoring the truth. And the truth is the opposite. That Stalin did not suppress these groups, he empowered them. He established separatist regions like Abkhazian and South Ossetian autonomous republics, encouraged ethnic division and redrew borders without historical or legal basis. So he did not protect Georgia, he dismantled it. He tore its national unity apart from within. In this episode, we expose the truth, step by step, how Stalin turned against his homeland, how that betrayal still echoes in the fractures of modern Georgia, and reveal how Stalin did not just fail Georgia, he crushed its soul. Let's start at the beginning. In 1918, after the Russian Empire collapsed, Georgia declared its independence. The Democratic Republic of Georgia was born multi-ethnic, democratic, and free. But just 3 years later, in February 1921, Stalin, then a rising Bolshevik, orchestrated its violent downfall. He supported the Soviet invasion of Georgia, branding the democratic government as Menshevik traitors. Thousands were killed, leaders were exiled or executed. The dream of a sovereign Georgia was crushed by one of its own sons. From 1921 to 1922, Stalin ceded vast territories of the Democratic Republic of Georgia, land recognized under international law, to neighboring powers. He handed over regions to Turkey, Russia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, in blatant violation of Georgia's sovereignty and international agreements. This wasn't diplomacy, it was dismemberment. By Stalin's direct actions, Georgia lost around 38,000 square kilometers of its historical territory, a loss greater than the entire territory of modern-day Belgium, which covers only 30,528 square kilometers. The scale of the betrayal wasn't symbolic, it was territorial, irreversible, and devastating. Stalin did not just conquer Georgia. He worked to erase its cultural identity. Under his rule, Georgian language, traditions, and the Orthodox Church were relentlessly suppressed. Churches were demolished or turned into barns. Clergy were imprisoned or executed. Stalin pushed a policy of total Russification, enforcing Russian as the language of the elite. Being Georgian became a liability unless you hid it or worse, betrayed it. This was not patriotism. This was cultural cleansing. In 1922, an internal Soviet crisis exposed Stalin's true disdain for Georgian sovereignty. The Georgian affair, as it came to be known, saw Stalin clash with Georgian Bolsheviks who wanted more autonomy within the Soviet system. Stalin responded with insults and threats, calling Georgian communists national deviators. Even Lenin, yes, Lenin criticized Stalin's brutality, accusing him of great Russian chauvinism and warning about his rise to unchecked power. Let that sink in. Stalin was too brutal even for Lenin. Then came the great purges of 1930s. Stalin unleashed a wave of terror across the Soviet Union, and Georgia was no exception. Thousands of Georgian intellectuals, poets, writers, and party officials were executed. Entire families were wiped out in the name of counter-revolution. Among the victims, many of Stalin's own former allies from Georgia. Why? Because anyone with independent thought, especially with national pride, was a threat to his total control. And what of the minorities within Georgia? In 1944, under Stalin's direct orders, entire ethnic groups were forcibly deported from Georgia, like Germans, Chechens, Ingush, Kurds, and others. They were loaded into cattle cars and shipped to Siberia or Central Asia. Thousands of them died from hunger, cold, or disease en route. These were not policies of national protection. These were crimes against humanity, crimes of paranoia, power, and ethnic engineering. Despite all of these terrible facts, remnants of the myth remain. There are people in Georgia who still worship his cult, and his museum also operates today. But more and more Georgians are demanding the truth be told. Not the Russian-approved version, not the Soviet lie, but the truth. That Stalin used his birthplace as a pawn in a much bigger game. And when Georgia stood in his way, he did not hesitate to destroy it again and again. So next time you hear someone say Stalin was a Georgian patriot, ask them this. What patriot imprisons and executes his people? What patriot silences their culture? What patriot helps erase his own country from the map? The answer is simple. Stalin was not a patriot. He was Georgia's tyrant in disguise, a servant of Russian Empire, not of Georgian nation, and history will remember him as such. If you found this episode eye-opening, don't forget to subscribe to our growing channel, Historydom. We are just getting started, and your support means everything as we uncover the untold truth of history. See you in the next episode.